Y'all seem to like my last historical sweater recreation, so we're gonna do another one. This is the rainbow jumper. It's a sweater pattern from the 1940s that's pretty popular in the historical knitting community. It was even in the film JoJo Rabbit. The original pattern is from Lister & Co. and it's only in one size, but there's a modern graded version available if you want to skip that step. There are links to both of these patterns in the description. I'm going to work from the original pattern because I'm going to do my own grading to build a pattern generator. This is a closely fitted puff sleeve sweater with ribbed cuffs and yoke and a slip stitch pattern. It also has buttons to close one shoulder. The pattern recommends 5 colors for the short sleeve and 6 for the long sleeve, I think to get the math to work out correctly, because it recommends 1 ounce of each color for the stripes and then 3 ounces for the yoke color. And I guess that covers the extra length of the sleeve if you add an extra color. I'll probably work with 4 or 5 colors because my color changer handles 4 colors. I'm still on a no-buy, so I'm not buying any more yarn for this project, but I did go shopping in my stash to find a handful of options, and I will make some decisions about what colors I'm going to use after I do some swatching. So, order of operations. I need to reverse engineer the hand knitting pattern and then translate that into code with some grading so it can be size configurable. And then I'm going to do a bunch of swatching because this project contains some techniques that I haven't attempted before, like short rows in the ribbing for the shoulders and buttonholes. So I need to make sure I know how to do all of that before I start making the final sweater. And then I'm going to make a bunch of prototypes until I'm happy with the pattern generator that I've created, and then we'll make the final sweater. Okay, let's start with the hand knitting pattern. Okay, I have the pattern pulled up with my laptop here, and let's go through it. So, first thing I like to see is that it's knit flat. That means it'll be a little easier to make on the knitting machine. We have a front, back, and we have sleeves as separate pieces. And then halfway through, we have a gauge. So we have 6.5 stitches and 8.5 rows. And as I mentioned in the black sheep sweater, we are not going to be able to get this gauge on the machine. Instead, we're just going to use this to convert the number of stitches and rows in the pattern back to inches, and then we'll have to convert to our gauge once we've swatched. So let's start looking at the back and the front. 109 stitches, 1 by 1 rib, 4 inches, 16.7, 32 to 34 inch bust, 12 inches, 4 inches, 12 inch, 8 inches, 2 stitches, 2 rows, 1/3 of an inch, 8 rows, 4 times a little less than an inch, maybe 2/3, 8 rows, about an inch, 14.5 inches, 14.5 minus 4 is 10.5 minus 8 is 2.5, 18 inches, 18.5 inches, 4, 8, 1.5, 4 inches, 30, 30, 34, 29, 4.5, usually 5 inches, 10 stitches, 3 times 6 rows, and an inch. So there we have the back. We have ribbing, we have body, we have underarm shelf bind off, and then we have the top. And I'll probably make some minor modifications to this because of the way that I know about modern sweater construction, like the shelf is probably going to be at least an inch and not this weird little half-inch thing. Especially because this is so fitted, we want it to like actually look right. Okay, let's move on to the front. So it's the same cast on of 109 stitches, 4 inches of ribbing, and then an increase to 121 stitches, about 18.5, an inch or 2, 16, 17, 18, 2 inches wider. I've seen this on sewing patterns before where the front's a little bit wider than the back, and that winds up pushing the seams back a little bit so they're like not as obvious. I guess that's what they're doing here. I may not do this in the final sweater. I may just make the front and the back equal, but let's continue on. 12 inches, 8 inches, 2/3 of an inch, 89 stitches, 14.5, 1.5, just 17.5, and 18.5, 3 inches, 1 inch lower than 30, 30, 30, 10, about an inch, 20, 10, 30, 12, 2, 10 more, 2 stitches, 2, and then 2 more rows. That's our front. And this disconnect here indicates that there's an increase, but I'll probably work that out in the pattern. All right, sleeves, 81 stitches, 12 inches, 12 inches. Okay, that makes sense. 2 inches, 9 stitches, like 13.5 inches. 1 stitch, 4th row, 4 inches. 2 inches, 2 times 8.5, 17, 4, 4.25, 8 increases total, 89 stitches, 97 stitches, 6.5, 14.9, about 15, 2 rows, 12, 6, 12 rows, 97, 6, 91, 4.5, 12 rows is more than an inch, 10 rows. So the math doesn't work out there. This is my vague approximation of a sleeve. The math for the sleeve head doesn't actually work out, and that's probably just a bug in their pattern. I'll probably go and fix that. I know it's not exactly what's going on in the original pattern, but I'm going to adapt this to fit what I know about drafting knitting patterns. For instance, I'm going to make the back and the front exactly the same size and the same width and not do this weird, like, move the seam back thing. They're going to be the same and probably have 1 inch of underarm bind off and then a little bit decreasing. I'm also going to add some underarm bind off to the sleeve and then do the sleeve head shaping the same way. And then I will also get rid of this weird increase row. Okay, I have enough information here to get me started drafting the pattern in code. So let's go do that. All right, just like that, we've got a pattern. Let me show you. This is the rainbow jumper pattern, and it came together really quickly because I borrowed a lot from the set and sleeve crew neck. And this is localhost because it's a local development server. I'll put it up on my website when I'm happy with it. We have all of our inputs, and then we have shaping for the body, and then we have the front and the back separate, and we do one shoulder without buttonholes and one shoulder with buttonholes. And I left this really vague because I think I'm going to see how it goes when I make my first prototype and decide if I want to add more information. Because buttonholes are tricky, and I think everybody's got their own way of doing them. And then back shaping, and then the only thing that I'm a little iffy on is these sleeves. I did modify them to have the same underarm shelf as the front and the back, so we'll see how it goes. It's the decreases in 2 steps that are a little iffy, so we do like 1 round of decreases here and another round of decreases here. And I tried to keep this similar as the pattern as possible, but it might be a little funky. And now it's time to prototype. But I haven't even done any swatching for this yet, so I need to start there first. I've already digitized the slip stitch pattern, and it's actually fairly straightforward. Here it is. With slip stitches on the machine, the black are the stitches that are knit, and the white are the stitches that are slipped. So it's slip for 4 stitches, and then a different stitch for 4 rows, and it's nice and straightforward. Okay, time to do some swatching. Okay, my swatches are washed and blocked, and I don't like my laptop's rebooting because it's not behaving. I don't like any of them. So just 2 colors makes it look kind of funky. Like, it looks like some weird striped checkerboard thing. And then here I realized that it might make more sense to alternate like light, dark to get the right kind of contrast, because this is 2 light colors together and you can't really tell them apart. And then I made this swatch, and I don't really like this one either because the blue and the green are too close together. I think the prototype is going to be this green, this orange, and then the like the mint green here, and just 3 colors, just like to get it started and decide what I like. And then I'll figure out from the yarn that I have what I actually want to make like the final thing from once I'm happy with the pattern. Okay, let's make a sweater. Oh, there's one more thing. When I was swatching, I realized I had to shift the slip pattern up by 1 row so that the color change would happen on the right side, because, so color changer sits on the left of the machine, and knitting the first row is setting up the first set of needles, and then on the way back you knit your first row. And if you do it that way with 4 rows of slip, it winds up row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and that's when you're supposed to change colors, but the carriage winds up on the wrong side. So if I shift the whole thing up 1 row and put 1 row of the previous like slip, then the color change winds up on the correct side. And if I could start the carriage on the right, this would be doable, but because I'm using AYAB and the version of the hardware we have out right now, there's a bug in the hardware, so you cannot start on the right on the 910 or the 950, so I have to start on the left. So I fixed the pattern. I will show you what it looks like. I'll put it here. Pattern. This is what it looks like now, and this is fine. I get the color change on the right side. So, time to make a prototype.
right. Let's try that again. Oh, fuck. Fuck.
Okay, let me explain what's going on here. So I didn't have a needle selected. I moved the carriage back so I could select the needle again, but that triggered a new line in the AYAB software, so now I'm off by a row. So I go back to the software and try to fix it and reset it to where it should be, and I start knitting again, and the first row is fine, and then when I come back, it's wrong. So I'm off by like 3 rows somewhere. So I have to go and manually reset the needles to what they're supposed to be on this row. And I know these are supposed to be in groups of 3 centered around the stitch that was slipped before. Let's try this again. So far, so good. And it's right!
It's done. I had so many issues with this and had to restart and like got off on the pattern and had to fix it manually and then fix it manually again, but it's done. And I managed not to mess up the pattern on the part that you see. So I'm only going to make one of these because I want to see how it fits into the sweater before I decide if I'm going to make any changes to the way that it's made. Because like this will get gathered up into like some kind of pleated situation at the top of the sleeve. So I'll make the second one if I'm happy with this one. And now it's on to the rest of the sweater. And I'm not going to put any effort into, on this first prototype, of matching the stripes. That's something I'll save for the final sweater. What happened there? And we have a sleeve. That was the most nerve-wracking shoulder shaping and bind-off I have ever done, because it's ribbing, so it's using both beds and putting needles into hold on both beds, and then each of these is individually taken off on circular waste yarn to be closed later, and I'm just so glad I got it right, because it would be so much effort to go back and redo it if I didn't, because it would unravel like super far down. And I don't think I dropped any stitches. I think it's fine. And that is the back of the sweater. And now it is time to take a break and do something else for a while before I come back and knit the front.
The knitting is done. We have a back, a front, and I knit a second sleeve as well because I think this is going to be okay. The way that the sleeve works out is probably going to have to be box pleated into the arm hole, and then we'll see how that turns out. The original pattern says gather it, and on the photo that they have, it looks gathered, but I'm not sure how that's going to work with like corners, but we'll see. I'm going to take this inside and finish it and assemble it because it is hot out here and inside has air conditioning. So here's the deal. I have one shoulder joined. Actually, this is the front. I have one shoulder joined. I have a little inverted box plate. But here's the problem. That's the front. I made the armhole depth too short. So this is not gonna fit me. That would like squeeze into my armpit like that. And this is super frustrating because it's like almost perfect, except for this little thing, and there's like nothing I can do about it. There's really no way I could go in and make either of these things longer in this current state. So I'm gonna put it down for now because I'm super frustrated with this, but I might like try to find somebody smaller than me that it would fit. This sucks. This really sucks. But it's just a prototype, so it's not the end of the world. It's not like this is the final sweater. And I have learned a lot from this, mostly that I need to make the armholes deeper, but also the yoke feels a little short, which makes sense because if the armholes are deeper, the way that I have this drafted, the deeper the armhole, the longer the yoke is. So that'll make more sense. I should probably finish it just to see how the neckline fits. What if I can't get my arms in the sleeves? Okay, I'm putting this down for now. I'll pick it back up tomorrow. Okay. I finished the rest of this on the linker, and while it does not fit me, I can't even get like my upper arm through the armhole. I have learned from it, and therefore it was worth the time and effort. And I'm not weaving the ends in until I find somebody that it might actually fit, because I'm angry at it because I messed up, so it doesn't get a nice finishing. Okay, so the things that I learned were that my buttonholes are uneven, first of all. I don't actually know how to make buttonholes. This was a suggestion from my manual for my 910. Just like move 2 stitches to the side and then the next pass over you have to twist the stitches that are getting cast back on. And that seems to work fine. And I've got some tiny buttons that I might make sure fit through this. But the next go round I will definitely count my stitches better and try to get these more even. I want this one to be near the neck edge, but these other two need to be evenly spaced. Second, I do need end needle selection. I wasn't turning it on because I didn't think I'd need it for the selvage, but in a couple of these seams, the slip stitch winds up exactly on the edge, and that means that the knitting only goes up to the slip stitch, so you wind up having to sew into the slip stitch to get to the side seam. I'm just going to turn on end needle selection so that doesn't happen anymore, and it's a little easier to assemble. Also, the way that this worked out, the stripes exactly align on the underarm. And they line up perfectly, so I don't have to do any math on that when I make the next version, as long as it's the same gauge and the same yarn, which it will be because that's what I have. What else was there? Oh, so the problem with the armholes is that I used the armhole depth from the original pattern and didn't even think that I'd be grading up the rest of the pattern by about 4 inches. So of course I have to grade up the armholes. So I'm going to go back and fix that in my next version. And also the decreases for the underarm on the body are sharper than the decreases for the underarm on the sleeve. I'm going to make them even just so it's a little nicer to seam up. And like, I'm pretty happy with these box pleats. It doesn't quite look like the gathered way that it does in the photo, but it gets the end result that I'm looking for on this. So I'm going to go back and make those changes to the pattern that I'm using and then probably do some more swatching because I just picked up some more yarn and I might want to use some of this. I just did an unboxing of this for channel members, so you can go check that out. It's for a specific project that I'm not going to talk about publicly yet because it may or may not happen. But if you want to go check that out, you can. So I'm going to make changes, I'm going to do more swatching, and then we're going to make the final sweater. Other than like the issues with the armholes, I'm happy with this. I was worried that the neck depth wouldn't be quite right because I usually do 3 inches deep, but this is only 2, but it's fine. I tried it on before I put together the side seams, and it's fine the way it is. And it's really cute. Like, this is going to be a nice, cute sweater that's like lightweight and not like traditional, boring, plain sweater. So let me go do that. We are back. I have made the changes to my pattern, and while I was doing that, I went through all of the math to make sure I wasn't missing anything and figured out that I did not do the math correctly for the armhole depth, and that's why this is way too small. I was looking at other patterns and saw that I had used 6.5 inches as the armhole depth for a bunch of other things, and those things fit me fine. And then finally did the math on this and realized that it's 1 inch too short on both sides. So that removes 2 inches from the total circumference, and that's why it didn't fit over my arm. And also why the yoke seems so short, because it's meant to be 1 inch longer. I had messed up the math during the transition from the slip stitch pattern to the yoke, so the next version should be in a lot better shape. I forgot to take into account in the length, like the shoulder slope, so it's fine. It's fine now, it's fixed now. I went through my stash and found some tiny buttons that I'm going to use for the shoulder closure thing, and these fit through the holes, so they're in good shape. I think these came from Wall Walk. I'll post a link if I can find them. And then, as much as I like these colors and this green, the place where I photograph myself for the thumbnails has a green background, so this is not going to stand out much. So I did some more swatching and actually had some significant swatch failures, but this is going to be my yoke and ribbing color, and then this is going to be what I'm doing for the slip stitch pattern. I'm switching the mint and the blue, but this is essentially what it's going to be, and that should be pretty good. I like this medium blue that I have, and I was going to use this for the yoke and the ribbing, but it's too close in color to my jeans, like most of the jeans that I wear, and I want to be able to wear this like out in the world, so I didn't want to be too matchy-matchy, so we're going with the dusty rose instead. I think it's called Earth Rose. But let's get started. Okay, let me explain what's going on here. So this is a 4 color changer that was originally manufactured for the machine. This is the single bed version. You may have seen me use it with this plastic adapter to turn it into double bed color changer. I got this on Etsy, but it's not being manufactured anymore. Sorry. I have this loaded with all of my colors, so I can just quickly change through when I want to, and they're in the order I want to use them. So red, mint green, green, medium blue, reddish, and bringing the carriage all the way past the color changer will pick up a new color. Okay, so I want the red, and then I want end needle selection, so I turn on KC2. We're hooked into the timing belts, and my final tension here, and then AYAB is set up, and then we're initialized, and I'm gonna knit 1 row. Oh crap, I have the wrong sinker plate on this. There's a special sinker plate for the color changer. You know what? Let's just completely reset this. Reset those needles so they don't cause problems. Okay, we're good. Nope, off for now. Okay, so there's a special sinker plate for the color changer. It's got the slot in the side so the yarns fit in and then get hooked around this thing, and then they move on. Get that in. Load the red back up. I'm not changing colors yet because we want the red to slip in the subsequent rows. So KC1, nope. We're initialized, and we knit 1 row. And this has started selecting needles, but we don't want to hit any buttons on the carriage yet because we're not set up with the correct color. We come back, and now we want to start doing things and changing stuff. And I've lost some yarns, but that's okay. So I want this yarn next. I'm gonna go take the carriage all the way over and come back, and we see we have the mint green loaded, and then both part buttons to get this to slip stitches, and the needles that are back will slip and the ones that are forward will knit. So if you look at that, these ones are knitting, and then this one is slipping, and then we just do that for a while. Okay, it's time to switch colors, but my colors have fallen out of the color changer, so let me go fix that. Okay, I need to do increases, and I'm deciding how to do the increases based on what I have going on here. And here I don't want to move this over because I'll wind up slipping a green instead of a blue if I do that. So I'm just going to move one stitch over. Oh, and I dropped that stitch. Come on. There we go. Okay, one stitch over. And then I'm going to pick up the purl bump from the row below, put it on that needle, and then I need to reset the needles to the way that they would have been had this been knit normally with AYAB. And there we go, now these are going to knit. And do the same thing on the other side. Move the weights up. And then when we get in the situation where the same color is now held back and we have the old slipped color in the middle here, I know I need to change colors. Let's do that. And then this just continues forever.
Oh, shit.
Okay, so I forgot to change colors. So now we have to fix this because this sleeve is like 3 rows from being done. And I do not want to start it over. So first, we're going to unknit the extra row that I knit. And this is just like a yanking and a back and forth motion. Okay. And then carriage comes off the bed. And we're going to reset it over here. And back to KC2, KC1, so I don't forget. And after blue, red. So let's load that up. And now I'm going to manually set the needles to what this row should be because of the way the Brother machines work. And I know what it needs to be because these green stitches that have been slipped for 4 rows should now knit. And I know that this is centered around clusters of 3, so I can just grab 3. Okay, and then I have end needle selection, so we're selecting end needles. So the next row is set up, and now I need to restart the pattern so that it's in the right place. And I did this enough times while making my prototype that I know I need to either start on row 3 or row 7 based on like what the offset is. And I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to look at the pattern and take a guess, and hopefully I get it right, but we will see. Be right back. So row 3 has 2 tucked, so it needs to be row 7. I have both my part buttons in so that this is going to knit correctly, and I have the next color selected, and I need to go reset my row counter by 2. I guessed correctly! Yeah! Now I have decreases to do. This is the top of the sleeve head. And I choose what kind of decrease to do based on how many stitches I have available to work with so it doesn't disrupt the pattern. And just do my best here. Okay, now it's time to switch colors again. Okay. And now we bind off, but first, all these needles need to be reset. Come on. Dropping tools, now we can bind off. Okay, I have my sleeves and I'm happy with these, and I even carefully pinned it at the top and the bottom and made sure it fits over my arm, and it should fit this time. I also added 1/2 inch to the armhole depth, so it should be in better shape. And when I made my prototype, the stripes just kind of happened to line up at the underarm, and had I done this again with the same measurements and the same number of stripes, it would have happened again for this. But I made the sleeve a little bit longer, and I'm also using 4 stripes instead of 3, so there's no guarantee that things are going to line up. They might still by accident, and the right way to do this is to do the math and figure out where the stripes are going to land on both the sleeves and the body, and then line them up. But instead, I'm going to eyeball it. So having already made the sleeves, I know where the underarm is in the color progression. It's like right at the end of the medium blue. So when I make the body of the sweater, because it's just knit straight, there's no increases or decreases in the body, when I get to the underarm, if it's not at the medium blue, I'm just going to keep going until I get back to medium blue. And because of the way the math works out, that's only 3, that could only be maximum 3 stripes, which is 3 times 4, which is 12, which is a little more than an inch of knitting. So the body length might be a little bit longer than I was expecting it to be, but I can get things to line up a lot more easily without doing any math, because I don't feel like doing any math right now. All right, let me go knit the body of this thing. Okay, it is a different day, and so many things have happened that I need to talk about. So I was planning to do the back and be like, oh, the back is so easy, you've seen it before, you don't need to see it again. But this was my first attempt last night, and I got through the underarm bind off, and then I reached a point where I didn't have the yarn fully loaded after a color change, and it dropped off the bed, and there was no way to fix this. I'll have to unravel this later. And then, oh crap, I started over and made another one. Here it is. And the armhole is way too small. I took another look at what I was doing, and I realized I was reading from the old pattern and not the new pattern, and I had just made another tiny armhole sweater. So this one I am not using, and it's going to be unraveled again. And then I finally made this one. This one is correct. The armhole depth is correct. This is the back. So it's just going to look like that. And then you get more yoke with it on this one. And this should actually fit. Okay, let me make the front now, and I will actually show you that one, though I might not narrate as I go because it is too much thinking. I'll probably voice over later, so be prepared for that.
transferring half of these stitches to the bottom bed for the yoke ribbing, and I chose which ones to transfer so that I wouldn't have to transfer any of the slipped stitches. The carriages on both beds are set so they won't knit back from hold. You can't see it, but I have some very carefully placed weights under here. Shoulder shaping happens the exact same way as it does in other sweaters, only it's on both beds. It's tricky to wrap these needles without getting the yarn caught on the gate pegs. At this point, I am manually pulling down on one of the claw weights under this tiny little section. And now all the needles go back into work. This is how my manual recommended doing buttonholes. 2 stitches get moved over to the side in opposite directions. Then I had to make sure that the empty needles were still in work. And now the needles pick up more yarn, but they won't knit correctly like this, so I have to twist them and put them back on the hook. And at this point, I realized I forgot to do the second buttonhole, and also that I've been talking about 3 buttonholes for the whole video, but this sweater only has 2. So here's me manually figuring out where the second one should be, and just eyeballing it. Let me go through this whole process again. This shoulder is a little bit longer than the other one, and that's so that the buttonholes are over the back half of the yoke. I'm leaving a long tail for a sewn bind off later. And the shoulder comes off on circular waist yarn. I'm doing this very slowly and carefully because if this gets messed up at this point, there's really no recovering from this and the sweater is almost done.
It's done. It's finally done. This is the back. This is the front. You can tell because it's got more thing and it's gonna fit. It's gonna fit. It's gonna fit. And then I have sleeves. And then I'm gonna assemble this on the linker because I have lost patience. Oh, that's the swatch. This is the other sleeve. I have lost patience for this project and I would like to get it done before something else goes wrong. And the linker is the fastest way to do that. But first I must go run some errands before things close for the day. I should be able to get this finished tonight. I just need to like kitchen stitch these closed and then put the stuff together and the things and then a bajillion ends to weave in. Look at that. Okay, I'll be back. Pull the first half off, the needly things. We have our sleeve. Ta-da! It's not as poofy as the other one was, but I'm okay with it. I'm going to do the rest of this off camera because it's a lot of effort. Okay, so I did one sleeve yesterday and then I thought about it and decided that I didn't like it. So then I did the other sleeve a different way. And this was just, I did the side seam and the sleeve seam and then put this together like I would normally put a set-in sleeve on like a sewing project where it's gathered at the top. And I like this much better. I think I'm going to take this one off and redo it. Even though like it's faster on the linker, but like you get a nicer finish by hand. So let me just put this on real quick. It's a better fit after everything I went through. Oh, there we go, yeah. And this is half assembled, so of course the fit's gonna be a little funky. But like that'll go like that, and then it's like that. And I haven't closed the shoulders yet because I think this is the one with the buttons and this one's just gonna be like sewn together, but that should fit. Okay, cool, let me do the other sleeve. All right, it's done. I have woven in all of the ends. There were 12 bajillion of them. And the inside is, of course, beautiful because it's perfect. And then I added the buttons. Yep, one of them came undone. Buttons on the top. I just attached the buttons to the very edge of the back neckline. And then they go through the thing on the front. Okay. It's time to block this, and then I will talk a bit about what went right and what went wrong and the issues that I had making this, and then like some of the other stuff. Like when I got to the underarms, the stripe alignment was just perfect already. I didn't have to do anything with it. But when I got to the yoke, it was off. Like I wanted it to end on pink, so I just knit a few more stripes until I got to the point that it was pink again, and then I took that length out of the yoke, so it would keep a consistent length. All right, let me wash this. Here's the final sweater washed and blocked. Is it perfect? No. Is it exactly as the hand knitting pattern was written? Also no, this is my interpretation of a pattern from the 1940s translated into JavaScript, which didn't even exist then. I don't think, when was COBOL? COBOL was like the first modern programming language. Okay, I have to stop and correct myself here. COBOL was not the first modern programming language. Fortran was. It was developed in the 50s, but they were using assembly language before that. Anyway, the technology to make this sweater did not exist when the pattern was written, so I think I did a decent job for that much. There were knitting machines in the 1940s. They hadn't become popular yet, but they would have been able to do all of this with a lot of hand manipulation. So this is not an unreasonable interpretation, but I'm happy with it. I'm actually really thrilled with this sweater. It is super cute, and it's lightweight enough that I can wear it probably as like a base layer. It'll be just like perfect for a chilly office, which my office is, even if it's 90 degrees outside, it's still a little chilly at my desk. So I will probably get a lot of wear out of this. There were a few issues with the pattern, even in my final prototype. Like the sleeves weren't as deep as the armhole, and I'm not sure what's up with that. I'm going to go look through the pattern and I'll correct it before I post it. By the time the video is out and by the time you're watching this, the pattern should be up on my website. I'll leave a link in the description and links to both the original pattern and the hand knitting graded version if you want to check those out for yourself. I really enjoy this adapting a hand knitting pattern process. If there are any other sweaters that you'd like me to adapt or any other like accessories from historical patterns, let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to take a look. And let me know if you want to make one of these because I think it's a nice, cute sweater. I want to say thank you to channel members who make videos like this possible. If you'd like to become a channel member and support this channel, click the join button down below. All channel members get early access to new videos, and channel members at the mid-tier and up get access to members-only videos. Most recently, I unboxed 8 pounds of yarn, even though I'm not supposed to be buying yarn right now, and did some swatching for a secret project that you might hear about in the future. So go check that out if that's your thing. Thanks for watching. Happy knitting.